So Father Ron, are you doing an infomercial for collections for your offerings behind you? Only $1 a candle, right?
Just $1 a candle. We'll get the sign, we'll put it out and leave the slot open with a, or I'll direct you to the online giving, right?
You're missing a prime opportunity here.
Candles represented all the prayers that are needed for tonight's meeting.
Indeed.
Do we have everyone back and accounted for?
Yes, all the council members that are present are logged on, I believe. Yes, whenever you're ready, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, and we reconvene our regular meeting tonight of the Glendora City Council on September 28th. For the public that may just be joining us now, we did have a closed session meeting at 6 p.m., at which time we called roll. Councilmember Mendel Thompson has an excused absence this evening, so there are 4 council members present tonight. Tonight, we will begin our meeting with an invocation, which will be led by Father Ron Clark of St. Dorothy Catholic Church, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, which will be led by Hudson Mazel, a Cub Scout with Pack 482. So we welcome both of you, and Father Ron, welcome.
Thank you so very much. So let us begin in the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. A community is blessed when it recognizes the glory in which it exists. Father, you bless your creation with order. We see your beauty in the smallest particle and are overwhelmed when we try to take in the immensity of your creation. Your goodness abounds in all that exists. You delight in working in and through your children. We cooperate with your goodness when we seek to care for that which you have placed before us. Father, this council is charged with leading this community in the midst of your creation. I pray that they may seek your wisdom in that which comes before them. May they always be aware of the needs of the people they represent. May they seek that which promotes life. May they seek to keep those in their charge safe. May they seek to bring light to the truth, to your truth. May the discussions and decisions brought forth always recognize and honor the dignity of your creation. And Father, we place ourselves in your presence, for you have promised that where 2 or more are gathered in your name, you would remain in the midst. Tonight, we invoke your presence. As this meeting transpires, may these, our representatives, listen intently to your guidance. May they experience your counsel, and may this gathering be productive, peaceful, and loving. We ask this in your holy name. Amen.
Please stand. Please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ron, and thank you, Hudson. We appreciate that very much. It takes us now to student reports. We are very happy and excited to have the opportunity to have student representatives join us once again to make reports this evening from Glendora High School. We have Nadia Bashir. Nadia, welcome.
Good evening, esteemed City Council members. Glendora High School is so proud to be back on campus with thriving sports, extracurriculars, and ASB activities. In this report, I will start with a brief recap of our past activities this year. On the third day of school, we hosted a welcome walk instead of our usual assembly to put a COVID-safe spin on a beloved event. We had students come with their classes to short stations around campus to get the assembly experience with band, cheer, and games while staying within regulations. Our usual howdy dance was unable to take place on the first Saturday of the year, but it hasn't been canceled. We will postpone it until later in the year to transform it into another casual dance event. Within the last few weeks, seniors have enjoyed Senior Sunrise and Luau, two events ASB has been able to adapt to ensure the most normality and fun as possible. Seniors have had the opportunity to hang out with friends, enjoy snacks, and make long-lasting memories. Club Rush took place last week, where students had the opportunity to start and publicize their clubs for a week at lunch. We're so happy to have about 50 clubs on campus of varying interests and activities to ensure every student finds something they're passionate about. Students are ecstatic to have the chance to express themselves and find a community on campus. Last Friday, the Glendora Show Choirs hosted their first concert in almost 2 years, the Zumba Night fundraiser. Friends and family were able to listen to songs and have the opportunity to participate in a Zumba class outside of the pavilion. Regarding upcoming events, GHS is looking forward to Homecoming Week with Spirit Days, Assembly, Parade, Game, and the Dance. The first event is our Homecoming Assembly on October 1st. GHS senior students will attend their first live assembly since 2020, while the rest of our campus views the event through a live broadcast from their fourth period classrooms. This assembly will include performances by band, pageantry, and cheer, and will culminate with the crowning of the 2021 Homecoming King. Following the assembly, ASB invites the Glendora community to join us at 4 p.m. on Glendora Avenue for the annual Homecoming Parade. The parade will include the award-winning GHS band and pageantry, our Grand Marshal GOSD Teacher of the Year, Indu Alfondor, the GHS football program, 2021 Homecoming Princesses, City and GOSD dignitaries, and the floats from each class, just to name a few. At 7 p.m. that Friday, GHS football, currently undefeated, will take on Ayala in a much-anticipated game with the 2021 Homecoming Queen crowning. Finally, on October 2nd, ASB presents the Greatest Show Homecoming Dance. Students will be treated to games, snacks, and dancing at this semi-formal event. We are all looking forward to these celebrations honoring the past and present of Glendora High School. Thank you.
Thank you, Nadia. Tonight from Charter Oak High School, we have Pollock Tripathi. Pollock?
Hello, good evening. My name is Pollock Tripathi and I'm the representative for Charter Oak High School, and the following is my report from the month of August to September. So welcome back Luau. Charter Oak ASB started the school year by hosting a welcome back Luau the day before school to celebrate the return of students on campus after a long year of virtual learning. Charter Oak ASB also hosted the first night rally of the year, Charge It Up, in the Lou Farrar Stadium to accommodate for the COVID-19 guidelines. The night rally was a huge success and it kicked off the school year to a great start, and we also announced homecoming court. Fall athletics are underway. Since the summer, fall athletics have been anticipating the return of sports and the beginning of league games. Football has begun preseason and has a record of 2-2, defeating St. John's and Northview High School. Water polo is undefeated in a league with a record of 1-0, defeating San Dimas High School. And volleyball has also begun league play with a record of 2-0, defeating Diamond Ranch and Covina High School. Golf, girls tennis, and cross country have been preparing for the league games to begin. Charter Oak Drama. Charter Oak High School Drama is presenting their new show, Bonnie and Clyde, at the HK Baird Theater in the beginning of October. Tickets are on sale now on their website. Charter Oak Vocal Music. The vocal groups have already hosted a fall showcase singing songs of all genres, and last Tuesday, they sang the national anthem at Angel Stadium. In the upcoming months, the Advanced Choir Ensemble are anticipating the third performance at Carnegie Hall in New York. Homecoming. On November 6th, Charter Oak is anticipating homecoming, and we have been doing spirit events this entire week. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And from St. Lucy's Priory High School, we have Olivia Risk. Olivia?
Good evening. My name is Olivia Risk, and I'm the student representative for St. Lucy's Priory High School. I'm a junior this year, and I'm also the junior class secretary. Additionally, I'm the Goldstone Chairperson of Divisional Spirit, the president of our Kiwanis Club on campus, a primary Benedictine leader, and a region ambassador. Because of St. Lucy's and all of these leadership roles, I have met so many of my friends, whom I call my sisters, and created lifelong memories. It has been such a blessing to be able to have all of our classes in person on our beautiful campus this year. I have noticed that coming back after almost 2 years of being at home has made all the difference. Seeing my teachers and friends in the hallway and eating lunch together in the amphitheater are just a couple of the highlights of my day. We started off the year with a freshman orientation and a freshman and new student prayer service. Our ASB and class officers also planned events like the Lollipop Toast and Club Day, which took place in our amphitheater. Club Day allowed students to learn about the dozens of clubs on our campus and even join a couple. The freshman father-daughter dance also took place in the amphitheater, as well as the first parent club meeting of the school year. The seniors of our tri-school community voted for their homecoming princesses and prince a few weeks ago. The 2 queens and a king will be crowned this Friday at our homecoming game, and the following day, we will have our homecoming mass. Last Thursday was our first Regent Shadow Day of the school year. Our region ambassadors led tours that allowed prospective students to know what a school day at St. Lucy's is like. Our next Shadow Day is October the 14th. The St. Lucy's community also recognized the 59th anniversary of the first day of school last Friday, the 24th. We even celebrated with Otter Pops. A couple of days ago, Sunday the 26th, was the inaugural alumni event. We were so blessed to have Father Ron there, and with the celebration of a mass, various student speakers and musicians, and a dinner, many St. Lucy's alumni from across the decades came together and enjoyed being back on campus. Our Spirit Week is this week. All of the students have enjoyed dressing up to the day's theme. Our first chance dance is also taking place October 9th. Thank you so much for inviting me and St. Lucy's to speak this evening, and I'm looking forward to the meetings in the coming months. Thank you again.
Thank you, Olivia and Pollock and Nadia. We appreciate you being here tonight and sharing all of this information with us, and we look forward to seeing you again. That takes us now to reordering of or additions to the agenda. Does anyone have anything they wish to add or any reordering? Okay, hearing none, then that moves us on to public comment. At this time, the public has the opportunity to address the council on anything on the agenda or off of the agenda. You have 3 minutes to speak. If you wish to speak, you can use the raise hand icon on your screen. We also will receive comments via email. So at this time, do we have any comments that we have received via email?
Thank you, Mayor. We have received no request via the public comment email address. We do have one person that has requested to speak. Erica Landman is on. Erica.
Hi.
Yes, hi, you've got 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Okay. Hi, I'm Erica Landman. First, I wanted to confirm that I'm still able to speak regarding the Bonnie Cove topic at the time when you are speaking about the Bonnie Cove topic.
Yes, that's a public hearing, Erica.
Okay.
Yeah, during public hearing. So do you want to wait until the public hearing?
Oh, no, I have something else. So this is another thing. I just have a question regarding for tonight's agenda. It had all the council people's district number listed next to their name, which I think is very transparent. I think that's awesome. But I couldn't help but notice there were 2 districts that were missing, one from Karen Davis's, next to Karen Davis's name, and the other from Michael Alois's name. And I was just wondering why they were omitted from the agenda, and maybe if you could put them on, because I think that would help people realize a little bit better who their council person is for their district. That's it. Thanks.
Do we have any other persons wishing to speak?
Thank you, Mayor. We have received no further requests to give a public comment this time.
Okay, with that, then I will close the public comment time. And that takes us to member statements and reports. Councilmember Alawas.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to respond first to Erica. Erica, we're both Karen and I are both at large until the next election. So that means that if we were out of office for some reason at this point in time, I believe we would have to be elected by the entire city as opposed to the district until the next election comes up. So hopefully that answers your question. Last Wednesday at the sanitation district meeting, we approved, each individual district approved a huge buy down of the long-term unfunded liability. It will save Glendora residents, ratepayers, about $8 million over the next 35 years. I was hoping to be larger, but still $8 million is $8 million. And the creep in the unfunded liability won't grow as fast, which is a good thing. At our next COG meeting, we are going to be discussing the recently passed SB 9 legislation that had over 71% of the folks that were against it, and essentially eliminating single-family homes and what we want to do moving forward. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Friedendahl.
Thank you, Mayor. And it was nice to see Hudson doing the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you, Hudson. I think you might have gotten off. Father Ron always. And the student reports is a nice addition to have back, so we appreciate that. In the last few weeks, I've had a chance to go to 2 different educational seminars on behalf of the city, learn about things coming our way and opportunities to help retain local controls, other items such as electric vehicles and transit vehicles and how to do those and some of the networking available for that. And forward those on to the appropriate department heads. So great seminars and great opportunities. And lastly, just encourage the community to come out and see the high schools, enjoy their spirit weeks and the homecoming parade. And if you got a chance, go to the game. It looks like it'll be a good one. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Boyer.
Thanks, Karen. Just an opportunity to mention a couple of things. This last weekend, Charter Oak held their annual 5K run in which I participated, and as tradition is every year, I brought up the rear. So I make sure everyone's safe at the back of the pack. So, but the week before that, the Community Services Foundation held a 0.5K run here in the village, which is more my style of a race. It was a lot of fun. We had a lot of people come out and they did a great job, and hopefully next year we'll make that a tradition, and that will continue. Karen and I had the opportunity to represent the city of Glendora at the League of California Cities annual conference this past week. And just to give a couple of updates on some things that were discussed up there. One issue that everybody's talking about is our housing shortage. And we had a session which we were talking about workforce housing. And one of the really important things to bring up is that this is an issue not just in Southern California, not just California, not just the United States, it's around the world. There are housing shortages in a variety of different places. And just this last Sunday, Berlin had an election in which a main topic of the election was affordable housing. And they actually made a decision. They passed a new law that will limit the amount of properties that landlords can own. And so they will be having the city of Berlin actually buying 240,000 rental units from private buyers to bring those under government control. So there's a lot of different ideas on how to deal with this. Not sure what the best ones are, but just to let everybody know that this is a problem around the world right now. We also talked about short-term rentals, which we're going to be discussing here shortly. And short-term rentals has exacerbated the housing issue. That's part of the reason that we are having a housing shortage. So many communities are starting to outlaw them completely. A couple of things that were addressed on dealing with things locally was the idea of eliminating the ability for people to use these as party houses completely, which would not allow any guests to participate or to visit while somebody's at a short-term rental. And one of the other ideas, which I thought was interesting, was making the owner's contact information public. Because if somebody's staying at a hotel, you can reach out and contact the hotel at any time. And so apparently the idea of actually making sure that's available to people is an idea that's out there. We also talked a lot about social media, and I will tell you one of the interesting things was we were talking about a lot of the misinformation that's out there on social media. And we weren't so much talking about, we're talking about issues in local municipalities. So we weren't talking about the vaxxers versus the anti-vaxxers and some of those things, but we were talking about things like there's a problem with people posting things on social media. Like one example was where if somebody posts that their car gets stolen, when in reality their car gets repossessed. If they post something about their pet being eaten by a coyote and then it's discovered that their pet may have just run away, nobody really knows what happened to it. Or one of the worst things is where people actually identify people on social media and with the assumption that there might be some criminal activity or bad things going on, when it could just be a delivery person or a door-to-door salesperson that's coming to your home. So all of these issues have to be dealt with by law enforcement, and it takes time away from them having to do the job that they need to be doing for all of us. So it was just an interesting conversation that a lot of communities are having that problem, and they are looking to address it. The most passionate conversation that we had was about trying to bring communities together when we have a population that's so divided amongst a number of different things. It was interesting to see people talk about all of the various ideas and issues that they're dealing with, but it's important for us to know that this is happening. And we, especially a community like Glendora, has the ability to come together when necessary. But there's just no real answer for trying to deal with this. But one thing we took away from this, unlike in Washington and in Sacramento, local elected officials are, for the most part, working together. We'll find whether people are Democrat or Republican or liberal or conservative. On a local level, we all do have a tendency to be able to get together at a conference like this and talk about subjects and try to come up with ideas to make all of our communities better. So that's just a quick update on what went on there. And that's it. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you. As the Mayor Pro Tem mentioned, we were at the Cal Cities meeting, and in addition to those workshops that he just described, also had an opportunity to attend workshops on drought, different ideas responding to homelessness, the census, and some other things as well. And we also had an opportunity to advocate with our legislators on funding for first and last mile projects. So a beneficial time overall indeed. At this time, Mr. City Manager, do you have any report or statement? Mr. City Engineer? Oh. Mr. Winder, anything that you want to mention at this time?
Briefly, Madam Mayor and members of the council, like some of the council members, I also went to the Cal Cities conference, went to the city attorney's sessions of the Cal City conference. Aside from the less than exciting updates in various areas of the law, there were two particular sessions that will, I think, directly, potentially can directly benefit the city of Glendora. There was a very important session on the progeny from Martin versus the city of Boise and how the courts are interpreting the limits of that decision, which I think are going to give the city additional options in addressing the unhoused in your community. We also had a city attorney's working group to talk about strategies for addressing SB 9 and SB 10. including outreach to city attorneys on a possible statewide ballot measure preempting the application of SB 9 and SB 10 in cities. Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Very much. That takes us to special items. Tonight, our first special item is the opportunity to introduce and meet our new Citrus College Superintendent and President, Dr. Greg Schultz. Welcome, Dr. Schultz, and I'd like to invite you to say a few words.
Thank you, Mayor Davis. Good evening. Thank you to Mayor Davis, members of the City Council, and City Manager Raymond for this invitation. My name is Dr. Greg Schultz, and I had the privilege of being appointed to serve as the Superintendent President of Citrus College, July 1st. I'd like to acknowledge a community member in the audience with us this evening who serves as the President of the Citrus College Community College District Board of Trustees, Dr. Pat Rasmussen, and I'd like to thank her for her leadership as she represents the community of Glendora. As you may know, Citrus College serves over 10,000 students, and we are really happy to have our students back on campus. Right now, we offer our classes in a combination of formats, both in person with safety protocols in place, and we still have a significant online presence. As we look towards the spring semester, we'll be bringing a substantial amount of our courses back to campus. Approximately 75% of our classes will be offered on campus in the spring. We're closely following the LA County guidelines for educational institutions, as you might expect. And something about Citrus College that I've learned, and I hope you know, Citrus College in our community is a leader statewide and in the nation in transfer. That is, students who enter the community college, complete 2 years and transfer to a four-year college and university. We're also a leader in associate degree and certificate completion. We're proud to be a leader in workforce development, and certainly proud to be a partner with the city of Glendora. And it's a privilege for us to serve the community of Glendora. I also want to add that I had the privilege of meeting with our Glendora Superintendent, Dr. De Leon, just last week with Dr. Rasmussen from our District Board of Trustees. With that, thank you for this opportunity. I look forward to partnering with you, as does our entire college community, with the city in the days, weeks, and years ahead. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you very much for being here this evening. And again, welcome to Glendora. And we look forward to our ongoing partnership with Citrus College.
Thank you.
Next item on our agenda is the COVID reopening of the economy update. Mr. Raymond.
Good evening again, everyone. A brief update this evening. We are still waiting, as we mentioned 2 weeks ago, on final updates from the federal OSHA and Cal OSHA on President Biden's vaccine mandates for companies with over 100 individuals. We still do not have background information, nor can we talk about the potential impacts on the city and our businesses at this time. I would add, as part of the health officer order within Los Angeles County that does mandate testing and potential vaccinations for sports leagues, the Community Services Department and other city staff have worked to set up a testing location at the teen center Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Hours of operation, we've worked with the sports leagues on, but for those individuals who require testing or periodic testing for various events you're attending and or sporting events, you can do so for free at the teen center. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And with that, Mayor, turn it back over to you.
Thank you. Next item on our agenda is a proclamation recognizing June Overholt on her retirement. Last week, we had the opportunity to gather together with June and make a presentation and recognize and celebrate her many years of service. June, we appreciate all that you have contributed to the city of Glendora and the difference that you have made. And at this time, I'd like to invite Mayor Pro Tem Boyer to read the proclamation.
If I refuse to read this, does that mean that she has to stay around for a while?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's how that works.
Whereas in there that states that. So yes, well done, sir.
Oh my, well, June, it is my honor to read this proclamation tonight. Whereas in January 2015, June Overholt was appointed the finance director of the city of Glendora and then reclassified to administrative services director in 2019. And whereas during her 6 years with the city, June used her vast knowledge and experience to lead the administrative services department through many challenges, changes, and developments, always looking for ways to improve processes for the internal efficiencies as well as citizen services. And whereas under June's leadership, the city of Glendora achieved a AAA bond rating from the Standard & Poor's on a proposed pension obligation bond, putting Glendora as one of only 15 cities in the state of California with debt outstanding that have been achieved with this credit rating. And whereas June's fiscal responsibility and work ethic served as an exceptional example for all city employees. And whereas on September 29th, 2021, June will officially retire from the city of Glendora and is looking forward to painting, traveling, spending time with family, and living life to the fullest while making a difference along the way. And now, therefore, we, the City Council of the City of Glendora, do hereby congratulate June Overholt on her retirement and thank her for providing the Glendora community with over 6 years of dedicated service. In witness whereof, our mayor has set hereunto her hand and caused the seal of the City of Glendora to be affixed this 28th day of September, 2021. Congratulations, June.
Wow, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. And at this time, I'd like to call on City Manager Raymond.
Thank you very much, Mayor. June, I agree with the Mayor Pro Tem. If there was a whereas in there that didn't let you retire, we definitely would have added it to the proclamation. For the past 6 years, you've fearlessly led the Finance and Administrative Services Division. I made note at our small gathering last week that, it's not many times that a public employee leaves saving agencies more money than they'll ever be paid. And you've done that magnitude of 1,000 times over. The pension obligation bond saves more than 20 million. You work tirelessly on our Measure E campaign, working with our public groups to educate them on finances in the community. You were able to pull your decades of experience and being able to bridge a really important gap, and that is a city's future and financial position with a general understanding of the public of how cities work and really explain those gaps. And so incredibly appreciative for your hard work and dedication. I know some council members may want to say things this evening, but for me, and we're going to also unmute some of the department heads if they wish so to speak, that we are incredibly appreciative. Your work, as we talked about, we have a strategic plan laid out where a lot of what you're able to help us set aside future funding, you will have led us down a path 5 years from now where we're finishing an ERP system and a planning system, setting aside facility assessments, all because you were able to really work and hold us all accountable from a fiscal perspective. CalPERS changes its mind and look at discount rate changes. You've worked with us on a reserve policy that it allows us to pay that off and not reduce services. So the residents and community of Glendora is much better off for having you here. And we are sad to see you go, but excited for your retirement. There is no shortage of interim finance director positions that are out there. I know people have already approached you to come help them out. And we wish you the absolute best on wherever your future takes you, but we ask that you visit frequently and not forget about us. So with that, Mayor, turn it back over to the council if they have anything to say, and department heads if they would like to be unmuted to raise their hand, and we'll unmute them and they can say something as well.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to say anything before we look for raised hands?
If I could just add, one of the things, June, I don't think you'll ever understand how important your role was with the city during some times that we struggled a little bit. Your leadership, made us all feel confident that everything was going to be okay. And what is unusual is positions like yours are those that they're not flashy. You're not out in front of the public. You don't give a lot of speeches, but the importance of what you do to help a community like Glendora can never be repaid. So I just want to thank you publicly and tell you I appreciate everything that we've been through. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Elway.
Thank you, Mayor. June, this is bittersweet that you're leaving. I understand you put your years in. I'm hoping that you're going to get bored after that first week and call up Adam and say, hey, what can I do to help out? But I'm sure you're going to get plenty of other offers. I'm so appreciative of everything you've done for me when I first came on board, coming from the business world and trying to understand government accounting. I may as well have been on a different planet when I started getting access to how this government accounting works with the different funds and accounts and things of that nature. And you did a great job in actually not only explaining it, but you saw the differences that we had as council members of trying to reconcile the differences. And you actually put little things into your financial reports that helped us remember the connections and how they're supposed to really work. And that's just amazing to try to get up to speed so quickly, since we do have the oversight to be able to understand what's going on. You took suggestions and you ran with it to try to help us out. Incredibly patient, which is amazing for all the different gears and turning points that have to happen within government accounting and financing. So I wish you all the best. And I do hope sincerely that you get bored and you come back, because you're going to leave a huge hole, not just in your office of what you're doing, but in our hearts as well. So thank you so very much.
Thank you, Councilmember Friedendahl.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And June, thank you for all the tutorial, the guiding the newbie through on his training wheels and helping me get, I won't say up to speed, but certainly not crawling anymore. And I'm grateful for that. And thank you for your generous contribution to making Glendora what it is. So congratulations, good luck. Retirement is underrated. Those people that haven't done it yet, believe me, don't look back, go forward, make that difference that you know you want to, and go enjoy. Thank you.
Captain Williams.
Hi, on behalf of Chief of Police Pat Egan, I want to wish you happy retirement. It was great working with you, collaborating and learning from you over the years, and have safe travels. Good luck. Bye-bye.
Assistant City Manager Lopez.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to take a moment to thank June for her many years of service to our community, to this community, and for many years of service to the broader public sector. As it was mentioned previously, it's incredibly important to have folks that have a passion for that line of work and demonstrate leadership each and every day, because it's absolutely critical to the functions of our local government. So although our time was short, only about 2.5 months since I recently joined the city of Glendora, I've always appreciated June's willingness to help me learn about this community, learn about our organization, and always her availability to answer questions, sometimes more than once. So I want to wish you the very best. I hope you have a great time in your retirement. Relax for a little bit, go on vacation before you jump in on anything else. But hopefully we'll have an opportunity to stay in touch.
Ms. Stone.
June, much of what you have contributed to the city and to the community, you will never see in a spreadsheet. Although given some of our discussions about how to quantify the intangible, it would be really interesting to try. I have loved feeling confident that I could bring challenges to you, and even more importantly, bring the staff to you with challenges and have them experience what it was like to have someone help find solutions with such equanimity and consistency. For those of you who don't know out there, June lives in a world of interesting and enlightening and thought-provoking ideas. And June, I look forward to sharing more of those with you in the years to come. For this particular occasion, the public meeting transition here, I've picked 3 from our years together that I would like to share back at you as you make your way. The first one is Albert Einstein. The important thing is not to stop questioning. Curiosity has its own reason for existing. The second one is Nelson Mandela. It always seems impossible until it's done. And finally, playwright Tom Stoppard. Look on every exit as being an entrance somewhere else. So I look forward to your next entrance. Thank you for everything you've brought to us.
Thank you. Mr. Kugel.
Thank you. June, I've found you the entire time you were here to be a great manager, someone who came into the finance department and really has created a great organization within your department through the finance department phase into the administrative services phase. And I'm going to, miss your leadership at the city. I'm going to miss your, our conversations that we would occasionally have about, as Janet mentioned, many different esoteric subjects. And I know that the city will miss you, but we wish you well in your retirement and all of your future projects and endeavors.
Thank you. Ms. Sweet.
Hi, June. Congratulations. I came soon after you as a city engineer and then more recently as a public works director. And there's always an interesting relationship between accounting and engineering. And I cannot thank you enough for allowing us in public works to start spending money that you have helped bring to the city. The city's going to benefit from all your decisions, and I absolutely appreciate what it does for my future and our future here in the city of the next few years. I do have your phone number, so I know this is not an end, but I congratulate you and cannot thank you enough for all that you have done for me and for our department. Between finance and public works, everyone's talking more than they ever did in the past. So I absolutely appreciate that, and congratulations and enjoy your retirement.
Thank you. Mr. Aguirre.
June, congratulations. Thank you for always taking my questions during budget time, finding ways to help us when we were short money here and there, and coming up with suggestions to straighten and lengthen that dollar bill to help our department. And I just want to wish you the very best and enjoy. And again, congratulations.
Thank you. Ms. Sussman.
June, I am so excited about this new adventure you are going to be starting. And honestly, I cannot wait to see what new activities and adventures you find that pull you in. If you spend half as much time and energy with these new activities and that bucket list of yours, you're going to have a fabulous retirement, and you're going to be too busy to worry about work or anything of that kind. So I am actually hoping that we will get to see you a lot in more social and adventure ways. I'm looking forward to going on a hot air balloon ride to spend some time in a different environment and just see how that creativity just takes you to new levels. I really do appreciate all the work you've done here. The foundation you have set has set us up in ways that will help projects in the future just continue to go. Some of the IT projects you and I have discussed will, because of you and because of some of the financial things you put in place, we're actually able to consider moving forward with those and start implementing a lot of them. So thank you so much. And I really appreciate the last 6 years they've been wonderful. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson.
June, I just want to say congratulations on your retirement. It sounds like Moises, Karen, Belinda, and I have some big shoes to fill. It's going to take, I guess, at least 4 of us in the transition period. So and thank you for being a great mentor. I appreciate the time we've spent together. It's been 3.5 years, and working with some of the projects that were mentioned on the whereases with you, the POB, Measure Ad Hoc Committee. All of those were exciting and fun to put the city in a good space. So I appreciate the time you've spent giving me constructive feedback and helping me grow as a leader and a assistant finance director. And I hope you have fun travels and a great retirement. Congratulations.
Thank you. I do not see any other raised hands. So then I will bring you back to June if you would like to make any comments.
Well, thank you very much. I've been practicing crying while everyone's saying all these wonderful things. It's been a joy to work at the city. It's really the best place to retire from because, you know, I've worked in some tough environments, and this has been a positive one. And each of you have contributed to that. So thank you.
Thank you. And once again, congratulations. With that, that takes us to the next item on our agenda, a legislative update. I'd like to invite Assistant City Manager Lopez to do that presentation.
Thank you, Mayor. In what I hope will be the first of several regular legislative updates to the council moving forward, my goal and goal of our city manager is to ensure that we are communicating the actions that the city is taking relative to legislation that's being proposed. And so for tonight, for this kind of inaugural update, I want to provide a status update on the legislation that the city has taken a position on over the course of the previous year, or this first half of the legislative session. Legislature broke for a short break in late July and reconvened to meet some legislative deadlines. But in the interim, there are a few bills that we took positions on that have moved their way towards the governor. There are a few bills that are still with one of the houses in the legislature. And so I'm going to start off with the ones that are still either with the Assembly or on the Senate side that have not completed the legislative process to get it to the governor for his consideration. The first is Assembly Bill 1401. This is a bill that would have prohibited certain public agencies from imposing or enforcing minimum parking requirements on developments that are within a half mile of public transit facilities. The city was opposed to this legislation and submitted a letter expressing its opposition in May of 2021. Among the concerns that we outlined at that time was that this bill would allow developers and other public agencies, primarily transit agencies, which may or may not be accountable to voters, dictate parking requirements for properties that are adjacent to these public transit areas. And that includes bus corridors or high frequency bus stops or major transportation areas. So while the legislation in and of itself was well intended, parking requirements are something that are best established by local jurisdictions based on community needs. And so the bill was approved in the Assembly, but it was held in the Senate, and it may return as part of the second half of the legislative term. The second piece of legislation I want to highlight tonight is Assembly Constitutional Amendment 7. This is a constitutional amendment that would provide a county or a city that regulates zoning through its police powers, that any action taken at the local level will supersede any action that is taken by the state, with some very narrow specified exceptions. Effectively, the constitutional amendment would allow the city to maintain local land use authority when in conflict with those actions taken by the state. We've consistently opposed legislation and any regulatory action that limits local control, either directly or indirectly. And we issued a letter of support for this particular piece of legislation. We firmly believe, as I alluded to earlier, that local jurisdictions are best positioned to determine for themselves the implementation of land use policies. State-imposed mandates frequently lack the requisite flexibility to address our unique local needs and characteristics. This bill was introduced. It has not yet been referred to a committee for committee consideration, so it's still within its house of origin. However, we will continue to advocate for its progress through the legislative process. Thirdly, the city previously expressed support for the Gold Line extension budget appropriation request. This is to secure some additional funding to complete the segment between Pomona and Montclair. Those discussions did not materialize. They were deferred to next year as they were kind of part of the process and discussion for the high-speed rail project. The governor had asked the legislature to approve the last $10 billion that voters had authorized back in 2008 so that the high-speed rail segment between out in the Central Valley would be able to be completed. The Newsom administration tied in the $1 billion worth of transit projects here in Southern California to that project. And so through negotiations, nothing came to fruition for the time being, but we are expecting that those conversations to restart as part of the next legislative cycle. That comes, we're expecting some progress there, hopeful that some progress can be made. Last week, I should say, the Legislative Analyst Office projected that its estimates for revenue for the state for the upcoming fiscal year are going to be a little higher than their original projections. They gave a ballpark of approximately $5 to $25 billion. So it certainly affords us the opportunity to continue advocating for that particular funding, as it is a one-time construction capital cost. Moving forward to other legislation that actually was sent to the governor for his consideration. The first is Assembly Bill 61. This would authorize the Department of Alcohol and Beverage Control, or ABC, to allow licensees to continue to exercise some privileges that were expanded in light of the pandemic. They'll be able to continue some operations that were proven to be successful during the pandemic. In addition, the bill authorizes food facilities to prepare and serve food as temporary, what are called temporary satellite food service options without obtaining any additional permits. These provisions would remain in effect until July 1, 2024. Again, this provides ABC kind of the legislative authority to continue doing what they've done to help small businesses in our community. The city was supportive of this legislation and submitted a letter to the governor requesting that he sign the legislation. This particular piece of legislation is also similar to another one, SB 314, that was also supported by the city, that would effectively allow for catering options to continue. Those permits would be expanded and applied through that July 1st deadline, also in support of small businesses and dining and restaurant options in particular. Senate Bill 619. This is another legislation that the city supported. It would give local governments an optional pathway to comply with the provisions of Senate Bill 1383, which was adopted in 2016. This was a product of conversation that occurred at our previous city council meeting. This would give us one more year to comply with those organic waste mandates without the fear of penalties being imposed by Cal Recycle. So that piece of legislation is now on its way to the governor's office. And lastly, there are two pieces of legislation related to housing to kind of allude and build upon the comments that were made by Mayor Pro Tem Boyer and Mayor Davis. Housing is and will be a topic of conversation for the state of California for the foreseeable future. And there are two pieces of legislation, Senate Bill 9 and Senate Bill 10, that will have an impact on our community. The first, Senate Bill 9, would require local jurisdictions to ministerially approve housing development of 2 units in a single family zone. It would also require ministerial approval to subdivide an existing parcel for residential use into 2 parcels. Those 2 parcels would have to be approximately equal in size, provided that one parcel shall not be smaller than 40% of the total lot area of the original parcel. Both parcels need to be at least 1,200 square feet, and only one subdivision of that original parcel will be allowed. Cities can impose some objective zoning, subdivision, and design standards so long as none of those provisions conflict with the language of the bill. Cities are not going to be allowed to require more than one parking space per unit for either the proposed duplex or the proposed lot split. The legislation does allow for some limited restrictions. We can prohibit this activity from occurring in certain designated areas, chief among them being what are called very high fire hazard severity zones, of which a portion of our city is designated. We could prohibit the demolition or alteration of existing units that have been used as rent restricted housing or have been occupied by a particular tenant over the last 3 years. We could also deny a specific project if the building official can make certain written findings based on the preponderance of evidence that the housing development project would have a specific adverse impact upon the health and safety or the physical environment, and there is no feasible method to satisfactorily mitigate that specific adverse impact. We can also prohibit the rentals of these units for no period less than 30 days, and cities do not have to allow the construction of ADUs or JADUs on these lot split properties. Applicants would be required to sign an affidavit stating that the applicant intends to occupy one of the housing units as its principal residence for a minimum of 3 years from the date of the approval of the lot split. The city, like many other jurisdictions throughout the state, submitted not just one letter of opposition. We submitted a few letters of opposition, most recently requesting that the governor veto this piece of legislation. Unfortunately, the governor signed the bill in mid-September. I should note that given housing affordability and homelessness are among the most critical issues that face the state today, the city's opposition was couched with comments requesting that the bill be amended to help address some of the city's original concerns. That being said, the city did oppose the legislation and requested it be vetoed, as it does not guarantee the construction of affordable housing, knowing fully well that state mandates undercut the extensive public engagement process that local jurisdictions undergo for local development projects. And as I mentioned previously in relation to another piece of legislation, the city has consistently opposed legislative and regulatory actions that limit local control. Local jurisdictions, we believe very strongly, are best positioned to determine for themselves how to implement land use policies. The sister piece of legislation is Senate Bill 10. That bill would specifically authorize a city or county to adopt an ordinance to zone any parcel for up to 10 residential units subject to certain conditions if the parcel is located in what's considered a transit-rich or urban infill site, as those terms are specifically designed. Construction of those projects would be subject to a ministerial approval. Any project that is larger than 10 residential units would not fall under that criteria. If adoption of such an ordinance, if the city council chose to adopt such an ordinance, it would supersede any local initiative. However, that ordinance would require that the council approve the ordinance by a 2/3 vote. By definition, a transit-rich area is any parcel that lies within 1/2 mile of a major transit stop or a parcel on a high-quality bus corridor, which simply means a fixed route bus service exists within that particular area. Similar to SB 9, there would be some limitations as to where these types of projects could be situated based on some criteria. Again, chief among them being those very high fire hazard severity zones. And once a jurisdiction approves that site under the provisions of this bill, it is prohibited from taking any action in the future that would reduce the density subsequently. This piece of legislation does include a sunset date of January 1st, 2029, and is not obligatory. So it is an action that would be undertaken by local jurisdictions subject to their choice. I know that was a lot of information for me to share verbally, but I would certainly encourage folks that are interested in learning about all of the pieces of legislation that I mentioned to consult the city's website. We post every single one of the letters that we issue under the legislative advocacy correspondence section on the city council's webpage. And Mayor, with that, I will turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez. Yes, it's a lot of information, but it just is indicative of how many moving pieces there are that cities have to contend with on a regular basis. So we appreciate you giving us that thumbnail sketch, and hopefully that will encourage residents to do some more investigating as well to understand what we're up against many times. So thank you. That takes us now to public hearings, and tonight we just have one public hearing. It is a recommendation to the City Council to approve the following. Amend the Glendora General Plan, Community Plan 2025 Land Use Element, Zone Change and Establishment of Site-Specific Development Standards, Development Plan Review, and Tentative Track Map for the development of a new subdivision consisting of 30 detached two-story homes on fee simple lots located at 1237 Bonnie Cove Avenue, Glendora, California. The applicant, Clearwater Communities. With that, I'd like to invite our city planner, Mr. Carnahan, to report.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. As stated tonight for your consideration is the request by Clearwater Communities, who's a developer and who's proposing construction of a new residential project at the west end of Bonnie Cove Avenue, where it meets the 210 freeway. Next slide. In order to accomplish the development, the following discretionary approvals have been requested. A general plan amendment to change the land use designation, zone change and establishment of site-specific development standards, tentative track map to create a residential subdivision, development plan review for the project's development plans, and finally, an environmental determination of the project's prepared CEQA analysis. Next slide. The subject site is a vacant 4.1 acre irregular shaped piece of land on the west side of Bonnie Cove Avenue. The site is bordered by residential development on the west, south, and east, and the 210 freeway on the north, above which is the South Hills Park area. Next slide. I'm just going to quickly show some different angles of the site so we can all understand where the site is. Basically, it's the green, this must have been taken in the winter, a green area that's the kind of the sloped area you can see there on the left next to the freeway. This is looking east. Next slide. This is just kind of a northwest kind of drone view. Again, you can see the freeway, and then this site's the kind of the green patch that's adjacent to the freeway. Next slide. These are sites. The left one is basically looking kind of from the mid to upper part of the site, looking down, and the other one is looking from the street view, looking up the site, and you can kind of see how it slopes up. Next slide. These images are of the immediate adjacent residential homes that are across the street and adjacent. Next slide. And this is the medium density project that is built about, I don't know, I think 5 or 6 lots away to the south at the south end of the block that will be mentioned a couple times tonight, I'm sure. Next slide. So on the general plan, the project site has a general plan land use designation of low density residential, which is intended for transitional areas between hillside areas and higher density single family areas. Permitted residential densities are 1.1 to 3 dwelling units per acre. This is a visual just showing the general plan designations at and around the site. The site again here is in the red perimeter. Next slide. The proposed site has a zoning designation of E6 single family estate, and the purpose of the single family residential zones, as stated in the municipal code, is to protect and promote the unique single family nature of the city by limiting the uses in such zones to residential and residentially compatible uses, and by requiring standards for the use, maintenance, and development of single family residential zoned properties. The minimum lot size in the E6 zone is 12,500 square feet. Here's a visual showing the zoning designations at and around the site. Again, the site's the red border. Next slide. So here's just some historical reference regarding the past site land use items for context. In 1966, the site was annexed to the city as vacant property. In 1985, the city initiated a general plan amendment and zone change that changed the site from E4 to E6 for about 16 parcels near the terminus of Bonnie Cove. This site, this is the zoning that is in place today. In 1990, the city council denied an application for subdivision and development at the site. However, in 1991, after multiple revisions, the city council approved the project for 6 single-family homes, but after multiple extensions, it expired in 1998. In 2006, a concept review application for a 9-home subdivision was submitted, and formal applications for subdivision followed in 2007 and 2008. Staff determined that studies were needed and identified with those additional steps and additional deposits that were required of the owner, who did not respond, and the applications were then terminated in 2009. Next slide. Next slide, please. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. So around 2016, the current applicant, Clearwater Communities, began to try to entitle the site. On December 3rd, 2019, the Glendora Planning Commission held a public hearing on the application for a 31-unit proposal and concluded with a recommendation of approval on a 5-0 vote. However, at the public hearing before the City Council on January 14th, 2020, the application was denied without prejudice on a 5-0 vote by the council. Next slide. Following the applicant submitted a preliminary proposal about a year later for a revised proposal. And then on January 26th, 2021, the City Council held a public study session on the zoning regulations and conceptual plans related to the development of preliminary plans for 30 two-story residential homes at the subject site. This plan was similar to the previous denied proposal, but included several changes, which included the following. One was a reduction in units from 31 to 30, layout changes at the westernmost portion of the site, which changed kind of by eliminating 2 private kind of side spur driveways that were located off the cul-de-sac, and reorienting all the homes to the street in more of a traditional fashion. The subdivision of land ownership changed from a condominium type to a fee simple lot. Note that a homeowner association will still likely be needed for the project, even if they are fee simple lots, just to provide for the private common areas like the open space park, the private road, the private utilities, the private sidewalk, and other common private items and maintenance. The HOA would also administer the CC&Rs for the development, but again, they are fee simple lots. The community open space changed as well from a small area that was kind of mid-south portion of the project site. And it kind of changed to be at the terminus end of the cul-de-sac. I should note, also they eliminated a walkway trail that was going to go along the south hillside portion of the property. Instead, they created the smaller, I would call it a view park, since that area is the highest part of the property. It's going to have some really good views to the west, and so it's a smaller park. They're designing it with a very small turf area with some benches and seatings that can take advantage of those views. Grading in the hillside walls were also adjusted, and in most cases reduced or eliminated. And the walking trail again was eliminated. It was on that south south portion of the lot. And the other proportion was the new proposal would also have the lower hillside areas, which in this visual here is that dark green area, the sloped area that slopes down, to be maintained by the individual property owners instead of an HOA. At this study session, no formal action was taken by the city council, but the council did provide positive feedback and comments. And then on March 22nd, the city received the subject application for the development of the subdivision and its 30 detached homes on the fee simple lots as proposed in the study session. The request, of course, included the amendment for the general plan, the zone change, the development standard establishment, development plan review, map, and the CEQA. Earlier this month, on September 7th, the Planning Commission held a public hearing on the current application and recommended approval on a 3-0 vote. Next slide. So as previously mentioned, the parcels have a general plan land use designation of low density residential and proposes a change to medium density residential to allow increased unit density. I should remind everybody that general plan amendments are fully discretionary. And when evaluating the project's relationship to these questions, staff did point out in the report several relevant excerpts from the general plan land use and housing elements that are city planning considerations, their goals and policies of the city. I also need to emphasize that amending the general plan is a significant policy decision that should be carefully addressed. The proposal is sensitive also because of the requested medium density designation and the question of, its surrounding neighborhood, which the immediate adjacent neighbors, are either low density or are R1 or E6. Since most of the neighborhood is R1, this would be a change to medium density from the low density for this site. What also should be noted, however, is that the Rose Walk development, which is at the end of the block, also involved a change in general plan and zoning from the low density from a lower density to a medium density, which is the same medium density that's requested here. And there could be a point that was also noted way back when in that meeting was that this introduction is an introduction to the medium density to the neighborhood in some cases. Next slide. So the proposal is for a planned development zone. As mentioned at this request, the municipal code states that the purpose of this type of zoning is to, quote, provide for residential development on a comprehensive basis by using site planning techniques not permitted through the literal application of zoning and subdivision regulations, and to produce an environment of stable, desirable character and harmony with existing potential development in the surrounding area. Next slide. So the PD zone is essentially site-specific zoning where the city feels it's appropriate. And the PD zone is acceptable for this type of residential development where site-specific development is needed for a unique lot and which would dictate special custom standards for site planning. In this case, the site slopes and its location at the end of the Bonnie Cove and its adjacency to the freeway are all considerations in this for this view. One view of the project would be also that it's not visually intrusive to the existing community lot area in terms of its character, as this is really kind of creating a spur street that's a new neighborhood onto itself, since only the sides would be visible. Next slide. Oh, just go back. I'm sorry. The table that I showed, what were this site's development standards, and again, they're basically mirroring what the project plans are showing. Next slide. The project is composed of 30 detached two-story residential houses with 2-car garages on the 4.2 acres of undeveloped land, which is a proposed density of about 7.1 dwelling units per acre. The two-story homes would range in size from 2,200 to 2,900 square feet with either 3 or 4 bedrooms. There are 4 different floor plans, each available in architectural styles that are either called Craftsman Colonial or Santa Barbara, that result in 8 different building elevations. Staff believes the elevations are nicely articulated and carefully detailed. The maximum height for the homes is 25 feet. Next slide. The current site plan indicates a 39-foot wide private roadway that roughly bisects the property for use by the adjacent homes and which terminates into the cul-de-sac. The roadway also includes a sidewalk and parking for guests on the south side. The front entrance to the new private roadway will not be gated. And one side again includes that sidewalk and guest parking. Each home includes an attached 2-car garage and includes individual driveways for private garage access. Next slide. The site is located next to the 210 freeway, and the northern portion of the project area includes an existing slope embankment area, which is currently recorded as a Caltrans easement. The applicant requested termination of this easement, and Caltrans has agreed to relinquish the easement once the project's sound walls and grading improvements are installed, and there is no longer a need for the Caltrans to maintain the existing slope. As part of the project's environmental review, a noise study was prepared, which indicated that a need for sound walls along the northern and western portions of the site, which would be around 4 to 13 feet in height. The construction of the sound walls was a mitigation measure for the project. In addition, inclusion of sound-rated windows and doors was also a requirement. It is staff's opinion that the site's proximity to the freeway and its physical conditions have been a central factor in its lagging in development. Large estates as envisioned by the E6 zoning never materialized, and none of the previous subdivision proposals ever made it to fruition. Other cities have seen increases in residential projects along the major freeways. There's lots of examples of this going east along the 210 freeway. Next slide. This is just a visual, just to physically show you where the easement for Caltrans is. It's that pale yellow color that covers, the northwestern portion of the current site, which would again be relinquished once the development would occur. Next slide. So the property is impacted by two forces, as mentioned, the freeway and its easement, and the uneven topography with sloping terrain and soil material from the freeway construction, which will require major grading to accommodate a residential development and the private road for this project. Topography of the site varies in elevation by about 45 feet with an average slope of about 21%. And not all of this is natural. According to the geological report, the site has a certain degree of artificial fill that was created from the soil cut during the freeway construction. And to accommodate the development of the site, again, major construction would be needed, which includes soil export off the site and retaining walls on the western and southern portions of the property. The retaining walls would again range between like 4 and 12 to 13 feet tall. Finally, note that the proposed grading would require the removal of approximately 56 trees on the project site. I'm going to show you some next slides here. We'll kind of go through kind of quickly. I know they're really hard to see, but I think that if you can squint, and it might be helpful. This first one I think is the most important because this is a cross section. If you took a slice out of the cake from the northern to the southern portion of the site directly in the middle, the south, the freeway would be kind of on your right hand side, and then the southern neighbors are on that lower portion on the left. And if you really squint, you can kind of see a dashed line that kind of goes up and kind of over that one existing house to the right, and it kind of starts petering down till it gets to the bottom right corner of that other house, and then it keeps going down. That's the existing slope conditions. And you can kind of see when you see that dashed line, and then you see where the grade's going to be, you can kind of see that basically they're cutting on the right, which is the north, and they're filling on the left, which is the south, to accommodate that road and the housing pads to make this work. That's sort of the main issues. That's the main part of the grading there. And then there's to be the retaining walls on the south, you can kind of see. So the next slides are a little bit more difficult to read, but if they do need to come up for discussions, we can show them. So the next slide. is kind of a, I would say, a colored impact analysis. You can kind of see everything that's red is a cut and everything kind of blue is a fill. So you can kind of, again, see everything on the northwest is kind of coming down and everything on the southern portion is kind of coming up to kind of make that a balanced site. Next slide. This is just a visual just showing the kind of the walls around the site, the retaining walls. Those are all the colored items. And the blues, the kind of the sound wall. And then the red items are kind of retaining walls. And that green area is just the drainage ditch. You can kind of see how the site walls and all that work together. Next slide. Again, these are just that kind of cut and fill kind of things again, where there's, you can see that dash line that I mentioned on section A a little bit more clearly here on the upper portion. And these are just some other cross sections to kind of show you how all this grading is going to be taking place. Next slide. And again, a plethora of more cross sections, which you probably can't see, but again, it just emphasizes that there's a lot of grading taking place and a lot of fine tuning in terms of how this is going to work. Next slide. And more. So, and one more slide. So the applicant is proposing to consolidate the existing land parcels into one, basically 4.154 acre site, and then subdivide that land to create fee simple lots for the 30 residential homes. They would be creating 2 lettered lots, one for the private street and one for the small open space park. The subdivision would be a private for exclusive land parcels, while also including shared supporting community infrastructure, landscaping, and some common areas. The average residential lot size would be around 5,000 square feet. The smallest would be around 3,000 square feet, and the largest about 8,000 square feet. Next slide. So 30, back one. Thank you. 30 homes are proposed, 7 of which will be 3 bedrooms, and the remaining 23 will be a variation of 4 bedrooms with an optional space for either lofts, dens, or 5th bedrooms. Again, there are 4 different floor plans, each available in that Craftsman or Colonial or Santa Barbara type concept style. 4 concepts in each style for a total of 8 different building elevations, which you can kind of see here laid out. Here, these would be the 4 kind of variations laid out. Again, staff believes these are nicely executed and designed, and they appear to be good quality materials and provide adequate variety, which is important when you're doing a development like this. Either you make, in my opinion, you need to make them look all the same, or you really need to do a good job in creating that variety. And a lot of developers don't create that variety. They only do 1 or 2, and they just add windows or something here and there. The developer here, I think, made special attention to really give this site that variety. Next slide. I'll just quickly go through the plans real quickly. This is the plan 1s. And here's the plans 2. Next slide. Plan 3s. Next slide. And the plan 4s. Next slide. All of these, again, would be facing that private street. Next slide. But from the public street, Bonnie Cove, this is the view you would see. Again, you'd see the sides of the 2 closest homes. There'd be street-facing walls between them and a small sloped area from the walls to the sidewalk, the public sidewalk, and then the street. Again, there would be no gate. This is an ungated community. And this would be the view from the street. Next slide. And these are just the colors and materials, which are nice natural earth tone type colors. Next slide. So a conceptual landscaping plan has been included. It indicates that approximately 68 new trees and various shrubs and ground covers can be considered. If the project is approved, a final landscaping plan will be prepared for city staff review and approval, which will include compliance with the state and city water efficiency regulations. Common area and front yard landscaping will be developer installed and maintained by the HOA. The rear yards will be homeowner installed and maintained. Conditions of approval, including a requirement that the developer plan and install all landscaping on the project site, and that the future HOA will maintain and install the landscaping, except for the private rear yards of the new homes, has been included as part of the project. Conditions of approval also include requiring street tree plantings along the newly widened Bonnie Cove Avenue. Next slide. This visual here just kind of emphasizes how those open space areas are going to be maintained. Basically, the green areas, the light green areas are private. The kind of dark green blue areas are HOA maintained. The park is the pink, that's HOA maintained. And then the orange areas are the slope areas that are maintained by the homeowners. And the yellow area is the street facing public landscaping along Bonnie Cove, which is HOA maintained. Next slide. Again, this is another exhibit showing all the various walls that we needed to be constructed and fences. Next slide. I know you can't see this one, but this is just all the dots are the existing trees and the inventory existing trees, which will all be mitigated pursuant to the city's urban forestry manual. Next slide. And this is again the planting plan showing how various trees could be planted by the developer. This does not include private trees. It would be obviously planted by the individual homeowners once they moved into the property. Next slide. So the city is the lead agency responsible for preparing analysis documentation in accordance with the California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA, with assistance of an environmental consultant, Michael Baker International. A draft initial study was completed, which concluded that the project will not have a significant effect on the environment with inclusion of mitigation measures. And a draft mitigated negative declaration and mitigation and monitoring report program have been prepared. The public review period for the initial study and draft MND commenced on July 6th and ended on July 26th. The city received written correspondence comments regarding the draft MND, and written responses were drafted and included as part of the report as an attachment. Next slide. Mailed notices were sent to all property owners within 2,000 feet of the subject site. A notice was posted on the site's physical project notification signboard, and notice of the public hearing was published in the San Gabriel Valley Tribune. Next slide. So the applicant has been working with city and their project engineer to incorporate the suggestions that the city council made at the study session, and they incorporated those into the new project design. Again, the changes included the subdivision of a land lot ownership from a condominium to fee simple. The other change was the reduction of lots from 31 to 30. The removal of the flag lot, so all the lots fronted the private street and didn't have those spur driveways. The community open space changed from the open space sloped area and the removal of that trail on the south area and created that small pocket park kind of at the end of the street. The grading walls were adjusted to reduce their number and heights. But keep in mind that general plan amendments and zone change designations are policy decisions. And it is up to the council to really kind of make that decision. You know, staff can believe that we believe it's compatible with the surrounding area and the project is a good utilization of this parcel. We believe the design is nicely attractive design. But the council has three options for consideration tonight: approval, denial, or any other lawful action or direction that you so choose. However, please note the recommendation forwarded to you by the Planning Commission was for approval of the project items as noted on this slide. Closing up here, again, apologize for the length. It's a pretty lengthy discussion, but I know that there's a lot of requests as part of this proposal, and I'm available for questions, as well as the project applicant has a short presentation to make. as well as we have our CEQA consultants also available for questions.
Thank you. At this time, per our resolution, I will invite Mr. Loper to address the council. You have 10 minutes. Welcome.
Thank you. I have a set of slides hopefully you can put up. I'm pleased to be back. Thank you, Mayor and council members, for allowing us to come in and be on the agenda tonight. We appreciate all of the input that you gave us back in January on the redesign concept, and we're happy to bring the new and improved updated version of the plan. We made some minor little tweaks since the meeting and have done all the studies of it. So next slide, please. Just a reminder of what we've done. We've redesigned this project to make this look much more like a traditional single-family neighborhood. We've reduced the number of units to 30. We are using traditional fee simple lots instead of detached condominiums that we proposed over a year ago. We've created this curvilinear street in all the houses front the street now. We don't have any little alleys and side streets. And the street has the characteristics of a street with a sidewalk, street parking. All the shared driveways were eliminated. Each home engages the front with front porches, the street. So this creates that traditional single family neighborhood that we heard loud and clear was desired. Homes have a varied setback, are not in a straight line, partly because of the curved street, which also provides a lot of great variety and enhances the streetscape. Next slide, please. We reduced the density to around 7.1, 7.2 lots per acre. We increased the average lot size significantly to a little over 5,000 square feet. It's 5,026. So there are a lot more larger lots with a lot larger usable backyards. And we think that's a big improvement. All of the homes are traditional single family homes with 2-car garages, driveways that can park on 3 of the floor plans, 2 additional cars, and on the smallest floor plan, 1 additional car. So like a single family neighborhood, the houses are set back with driveways that provide that extra parking. Every single house has a 2-car garage on the inside. We have conventional front yards, side yards, and rear yards. In addition, we provided guest parking along the street. So we have a lot more parking than the previous plan. Next slide, please. We've used a lot of the R1 design concepts. The lots are 20 to 30% larger for many of the lots. The backyards are larger. We have some that are 55 feet deep. All the lots are either 39 or 45 feet wide. 2/3 of the lots have backyards that exceed the 25-foot minimum in the R1 zone. So that's 2/3 of the lots exceed the minimum of the R1 zone. And all the lots have side yards of at least 5 feet, which complies with the R1 zone. In addition, I wanted to mention that on the Bonnie Cove side, we comply with the R1 zone street side setback of 10 feet between the house and the street property line. But in addition to that, the sidewalk is adjacent to the curb. So there's an additional 4 feet of landscaping within the public right of way that is maintained by the development to add another 4 feet from the 10 feet from the property line to the home. Next slide, please. One of the major changes we made is, besides trying to orient all the houses and their porches to the front to the street, we created this little private park at the end. So when you drive in, you can see the park at the end, and it becomes a little community gathering space. We felt this would be much more usable, much more accessible than the little trail that went through the slope that had quite a steep slope and a retaining wall. And this park's going to have a turf area, a specimen tree in the middle, benches so you can see the views all the way towards downtown LA on a clear day. On those beautiful clear days, when we get clear days in Glendora, we love those because we can see forever. And we think this is a great little gathering spot and creating a sense of neighborhood. I have a little teeny park in the neighborhood I live in, and during COVID, this is where we went outside to see our neighbors and safely gather and let the kids play around. And so we think this is a great asset and a great improvement. This would be maintained by the Homeowners Association at no cost to the city. Next slide, please. We have a lot less great retaining walls than the previous plan. It's allowed us to use a lot more natural slopes. We're placing the homes lower than the freeway and right away in a lot of cases, and this helps reduce the noise impacts and reduce the overall height of the sound walls that were needed from the plan from a year and a half ago. And this also created a lot more usable backyards with the grading. And we've eliminated most of the double wall retaining wall conditions and reduced materially the height of a lot of the walls on the north and the south property line. And as was mentioned by Mark, a considerable portion of the dirt on the site was actually put on the site when they created the 210 freeway and did the grading for that. And that will go away as part of the construction of this. And from rejiggering the grading in this site, we think we've reduced the impacts of the slope that's visible and created a lot more homes with great views. Next slide, please. We are proposing a plan development, and there's a lot of advantages to the PD zone. It gives the city insurance that there are only 30 homes, because as part of the plan development ordinance, we're only going to do 30 homes. So even though the general plan allows a wide range of densities, putting the plan development zone on the property fixes the number of homes in the zoning code to 30 fee simple lots. And in a design and a layout like a traditional single family home community. If someone wanted to change this in the future, they would have to apply to the city and do a zone change and change the PD zoning, which is a discretionary approval, which gives the council the ability to make any of those decisions. So the PD zone allows us to fix the number of units at 30 units. And the conditions of approval run with the land. So this PD zone provides protection. It allows for the unique characteristics of this site. We've got slopes, we have a freeway, we have an odd shape. And so it allows us the flexibility to create a zoning that works for this lot and give us this traditional looking single family lots that are fee simple. Next slide, please. So in summary, we really tried to revise the plan to give us the look and feel of a traditional single family home neighborhood, similar to a lot of the R1 neighborhoods around us. And we want to be able to provide a variety of lot sizes that conform naturally to the topography. We really believe this new site plan will fit into the neighborhood and will appear as a R1 single family neighborhood from Bonnie Cove, and will look like it when you drive in. We have a variety of floor plans that are going to help all family types. We have 3 of the floor plans have a downstairs bedroom and bathroom to allow for multi-generational living, which is very popular all over Southern California. Gives a lot of flexibility for families and extended families and all types of families. So we are here to answer any questions you have, and we thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Loper. With that, I will bring it to public comment. Each public speaker will have 3 minutes to speak on this item. Do we have any requests to speak?
Thank you, Mayor. We have received 2 requests via the meeting to give public testimony, and no requests via the public comment email. We can call on Frank Artura. Are you there? We're going to request that you unmute.
Yes, I'm here tonight. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, you have 3 minutes. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Frank Arturo, 180 Glendora Avenue. I just want to say briefly, I think these guys have done a great job with designing this project, both architecturally and with the layout of the site plan. You know, it's also now private ownership and not a condominium. In the coming years, it's going to be rare for the city council to have the opportunity to approve new single family developments. And this is an opportunity to bring another private ownership single family development to Glendora that's designed for young families and to modern standards. I think this development should elevate the value of the surrounding neighborhood and also support local businesses. I hope you're able to give it the support and approval that I think it should have. And I just want to say I support this project. I think they've done a really nice job. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Frank.
Thank you. We've got also Erica Landman. Erica.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes, you've got 3 minutes. Go ahead, Erica.
Okay, all right, I'll try to do this. The property on Bonnie Cove that has a proposed project of 30 homes is on an elevated pad with an excessive amount of grading. Honestly, I am very concerned for how this will fit in with the neighborhood. Like I said, it's elevated and it doesn't really match the single family homes on residential R1 lots around it. Okay, it's really going to overpopulate the neighborhood with only one ingress egress for over 100 homes. The city keeps saying that the hillside on the parcel is made up of fill from the 210 freeway when it was installed. The fill was primarily used to fill in a ravine where Colorama was previously leasing up in the South Hills Wilderness Park. And it had once been owned by the owner of Orange Julius, who hoped to make that area of the South Hills Wilderness Park a sports park. There have been multiple projects that were estate projects that did not require a general plan adjustment. And they were either denied or they fell through, but the primary reason always involved the violation of the Hillside Protection Ordinance and excessive grading. When you visit the property, you'll notice two things. One, that it's very close to the 210 freeway. And the second thing is that there is a hillside that will require a ton of grading. The hillside is the foot of the South Hills Wilderness Park, and it's also the backside of Tamara Lane. If you go to Tamara Lane and view the area, you'll see it is an actual hillside. And that hillside, I don't know of many hillsides that are only one-sided, but the other side's the backside of the slope to Tamara Lane. And it's just like a hilly area because it's all linked back to the South Hills. And let's see. So bottom line, I'm opposed to the project. Check out the dates also for the EIR and the traffic study. The traffic study was conducted a few years ago, and the EIR omits native species of birds and insects that reside in the wilderness park on the other side of the freeway. Regarding the traffic study, a lot has changed with the traffic in that area. So thank you, Erica. Bye.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else wishing to speak during public comment?
And no other requests have been received, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Then I will close public comment, and the applicant has 5 minutes to offer any rebuttal or closing comments.
We don't have a lot of comments, but I will mention that the folks that prepared the environmental documentation on behalf of the city are here, can answer any specific questions regarding the environmental concerns that were raised. We do believe that this does fit into an R1 neighborhood, and we've gone through with our slides lots of reasons why. When we redesigned the site, we actually lowered the homes that back up to Tamara Lane to make that slope more natural and have a lot less retaining walls. A majority of the retaining walls were moved, and on that, a large portion of them were removed on that side. So we were able to improve the look of that property. And I wanted to mention that that there are some trees that are removed that Mark mentioned, but we will be replacing those trees per the city's ordinance. And that we, in addition to with the other trees that are being installed by the developer, there'll be about 20 to 25% more trees on the site when the development opens. And that does not include any of the trees that are added in the private yards on the fee simple lots that the homeowners will undoubtedly install. So we will be replacing all the trees with more trees. If there's any other questions of the council, I'm here, but I will cede my rest of my time.
Thank you very much. With that, I will bring it back to the council. Councilmember Friedendahl.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to the team from Clearwater. I think you've done a great job on making adjustments and certainly bringing an attractive project. I know that my cohort, Mr. Thompson, will be very pleased that 23 of the 30 do have that downstairs bedroom that you mentioned. So good job there. That's always a nice feature, and the parking looks adequate. I have one concern, and I appreciate what you've done and why you've changed things, but it's the south slope. And I recognize that you have planned landscape for that. And I also recognize that in the CCNRs, there's discussion, and I'll just call it discussion, that the homeowner on those 11 lots that are the south slope are expected to maintain that. I would like to see some strong language in the CCNRs that say the homeowners will in fact maintain that, only because I don't want the existing residents on the south side of the development looking up the street at a hillside that is unloved. We already have that in town with alleyways and I don't want the alleyway problem what's over the wall isn't my problem. And letting the neighbors to look at it and enjoy that and not be looking at a mess. So is there any way we can either with staff or the developer include in the CCNRs strong language of expectation for that maintenance so that it doesn't become 11 different unloved spots as you look across the hillside? Beyond that, I support it, and I thank you for bringing it back to us. The second question I'll ask is, if we approve this tonight, will you please build it? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Freaknell. Councilmember Allouaz.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Mark, for your presentation and your diligence over this past time going through the second phase. First question I have is possibly for legal, and I'm not sure if this can be answered just as yet. Does SB 9 have jurisdiction over HOAs?
No.
Perfect. Thank you. So there's no growth in buildings then in HOAs.
Well, according to Senator Atkins, who wrote an after-the-fact letter in which he attempts to add to his legislative history, he says that SB 9 was never intended to have preemptive authority over planned unit developments or HOAs. So,
and I would
also, what it's worth.
I would also add to that the laws in SB 9 and would specifies that it is relative or effective on single family lot zones. This is not, I would argue, not a single family zoning designation, in part because of the general plan designation, which in this case is a multifamily designation. So in my opinion, SB 9 would not apply to this this project. However, ADUs could be built on each of the lots because under in a multifamily zone.
So can we change the zoning in the whole city to get around SB 9?
That's a discussion for a later date, I think.
All right. Also, and I have sent some information ahead of time, some questions, and hope we can get it clarified. Some information was sent back on the 10-foot setback. The 10-foot setback, it's from the house to the street. It's the road that's in front of the houses, and that also complies to Bonnie Cove as well. The setback, the same setback, 10 feet requirement minimum. Don't know who wants to answer that.
Mark's actually talking, but he's muted right now.
Sorry,
there you go.
Sorry, I was muted. Kind of a different response. These are the side of the homes, not the front of the homes, so they're not the same setbacks as the adjacent neighbors. But also for context is, it's kind of hard to tell where the roadway is currently now and where it's going to be widened. But in the technical sense, the city's setback would be 10 feet from the home to the new right-of-way property line, not the current property line. So basically it's 5 feet to the proposed wall on the top of that slope. And then there's that slope that goes down to the public sidewalk, and that's basically 5 feet with an extra 4 feet. And then that's basically a 6-foot sidewalk. And then you have your curb, and then you have 30 feet to the middle of the road. The road is going to be widened in addition to that. So that's like about basically another 20 feet. So it's kind of hard to say what comparable to the other ones. The other homes traditionally have between 20 and 25 foot setbacks. Some of them don't even maintain those. Some of them are less. For instance, the neighboring house south is far encroaching into that. But these would be considered the sides, I guess, if you want to argue, because these are fee simple lots. These homes are facing the private street. These are would be a side setback, which in this case would be technically 10.
Okay, so currently right now you've got about, according to the documents given on the section views, is about 14 feet from the building to the sidewalk and 20 feet from the building to the curb. Okay. What is the requirements for the surrounding R1 residents in that area? What's the setback requirement there?
If they're in if we're doing R1 zoning has a 20-foot front setback. Or they have a street side setback of 10.
Okay, so we're getting around this by having this as a side setback and not a front setback to the facing of the Bonnie Cove Street.
Again, it's a policy decision. You're writing your own code here, so it's not really comparable. You can kind of make it or change it however you see fit.
Okay. On page 12, Mark, when you originally started talking about this, I want some clarity on the staff report. You had mentioned that that it wasn't necessarily compatible with the R1 and E1 zoning in the area, and then later you said that it was because of the different lot sizes. On the top of page 12, it goes the general plan amendment and zone change designations are compatible with the surrounding area. And so with the zoning there for that area, it's 7,500 square feet, and these range from 3,000 to almost 8,000. So is that still stand, that paragraph, that line in the staff report? Since I heard two different things in the verbal presentation.
I would say it's your ultimate decision. It's a policy decision in terms of how the planning commission viewed it, in terms of and how staff was viewing it. Is that they are compatible with the neighborhood. They can be built. It's clearly shown that how they can be designed. Within the neighborhood context, there already is a kind of a similar project to the south. There's two different, we keep saying R1, there's E6 and R1 zoning on the neighborhood. So it's a mix of different zones. In terms of its arrangement, yes, it looks very traditional in style. In fact, I think this would look more traditional R1 than the other one on the south end of the street. So I kind of would just say it is a residential field project that is compatible with the neighborhood. Does it meet are all the lots 12,500 square feet? No, they're around 5,000 square feet. So it's a PD zoning though, but they're also maintaining slopes and hillsides and other things for consideration, which is why it's a unique zoning unto itself as per being proposed.
So from a technical standpoint, it's not compatible.
It would be interpretation in terms of by whoever's looking at it.
All right. Last question for the applicant. What's the price range going to be for this? Since now we're down by one house.
John, I think that's questions for you.
Okay, I'm sorry, just making sure I'm unmuted. The floor plans for the houses have stayed. So the price point will be dependent on what the floor plans, and they're exactly identical floor plans to what we had 2 or 3 years ago. So the price will be based on a per square foot of the floor plans. Honestly, prices in this part of the San Gabriel Valley have gone up so much in the last 9 months or a year. I'm not sure where they are exactly right now because we haven't done a recent market study. But the change in the number of lots will not affect the price. And the fact that the floor plans are the same, it will be whatever the price per square foot is going for houses in this part of Glendora. I expect these to be these range from 3 to 5 bedrooms, depending on how you configure them, whether they're offices or bedrooms or lofts. And the sizes vary between the 4 different floor plans. So we'll probably have some of these will be potentially first-time buyers, and some of these will be move-up buyers from a condominium or a townhome project that maybe are starting a family and need more square footage, or have moved, like I have, a parent into their house, and so you need more square footage. So these are going to be very comparable to a lot of the homes of similar size in this neighborhood.
So I think originally your price point was somewhere around $800,000 on an average.
My guess is it's gone up a lot since we last looked at that, just based on what the market's done in Glendora.
Are you seeing something close to $1 million a house on average?
I don't think it'd be that much, but probably in the 900s average. But there'll be a range because the house sizes vary significantly between the small one and the large one. But the other thing that's gone up is costs have gone up dramatically over the last 4 years too, with lumber and supplies and materials, and energy costs affect a lot of construction items. So the cost of building the houses has gone up. The good news is the prices have gone up.
So last question for you then is, if approved tonight, how long will it take for the project to be completed roughly?
It's going to take several months to get the working drawings done, and then several more months to get those permitted. So we're probably talking 9 months to a year to start construction. If the market is the same as it is now, they're going to get built very fast. We often would build these in phases of maybe 10 houses, and you'd build a phase and wait a couple months and build the next phase. But there's a good chance that within a year we could be moving dirt.
Or you plan on doing them all at one time and not in phases?
That'll depend on what the market is and what the construction lender requires. A lot of construction lenders require you to do it. You would do all the grading and all the utilities, and the street would get put in, but they sometimes won't let you put more than 10 or 12 houses up at a given time until you sold those. But if you sell them real fast, they'll let you start the next group. So it will be designed to be phased. It could be, if demand is really high when they're put on the market, that the 3 phases will get built or 4 phases will get built really fast.
All right, thank you very much.
Mayor Pro Tem Boyer.
No questions. I want to thank everybody for addressing the concerns we had, and I'm looking forward to welcoming 30 new families to the community.
And I would concur with that. I know that we've had several concerns and asked for those changes to be made, and appreciate that those mitigations have been taken into account. So thank you very much for that. With that, then I will bring it back to I will close the public hearing and bring it back to the council for a motion.
I have a question, please.
Yes, sir.
I don't recall if I got an answer to my commitment request for the CC&Rs to talk about the landscape maintenance. Is there any opportunity for that?
Yes, I think we already have some of that already included in condition 13 for you.
Yeah.
It talks about how, I mean, I don't know if it has the teeth that you were kind of hoping for, but it does talk about responsibilities.
I did see that. Thank you. I guess I'm looking for some.
We can talk to legal counsel if they think we can add more teeth to it.
So the only trouble with that is you can make it mandatory. The question is, who's going to enforce it? Are the homeowners within the HOA going to enforce it? The only way to meaningfully enforce CC&Rs is to provide the city with enforcement authority, and most cities don't want to get into that business. So we can add mandatory language, but there are some practical implications from that.
Mr. Friedendahl is volunteering to do that. Yes?
Hey, I got a 2-acre cemetery. I'm already doing that. I'm maxed out.
Does that answer your question, Mr. Friedendahl?
I appreciate that it got some consideration. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to make a motion that we approve the request as presented.
I'll second it.
So that would include all 4 of the staff recommendations?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
the city-
I'm sorry, go ahead.
The city clerk will need to read the ordinance by title, please.
Absolutely, yes. That is a motion by Councilmember Friedendahl and a second by Mayor Pro Tem Boyer to adopt California Environmental Quality Act mitigated negative declaration related to the attendant resolutions, adopt City Council Resolution CC 2021-46 entitled a resolution approving a mitigated negative declaration pursuant to the California Environmental Quality Act and text amendments to the Glendora General Plan, Community Plan 2025 to change the general plan land use designation of certain properties at 1237 Bonnie Cove Avenue from low density residential to medium density residential, project number Plan 21-0010. And 3, adopt ordinance 2063 entitled an ordinance approving a zone change from E6 single family estate to plan development and establishing site specific development standards and permitted uses on certain property located at 1237 Bonnie Cove Avenue, Glendora, California, project number Plan 21-0010, and 4, adopt City Council Resolution CC 2021-47 entitled a resolution approving a development plan review and tentative track map number 74990 to allow for the construction of 30 detached 2-story units on fee simple lots, project plan 21-0010, and compliance with California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA. I will now take a roll call vote. Councilmember Alawas.
Yes.
Councilmember Thompson is absent. Councilmember Friedendahl.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Boyer.
Yes.
And Mayor Davis.
Yes.
And that passes 4-0 with 1 absence. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Carnahan, and thank you, Mr. Loper, for your input and presentation and time tonight. We appreciate it. That takes us to the consent calendar. Items on the consent calendar can be approved by one motion. Does anyone wish to pull or comment on any item before we move forward?
No, I move consent calendar items 9 through 12.
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded.
Thank you. That is moved and seconded. I will take a roll call vote. Councilmember Alawas.
Yes.
Councilmember Thompson is absent. Councilmember Friedendahl.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Boyer.
Yes.
And Mayor Davis.
Yes.
And that passes 4-0-1. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, so tonight we do not have any member agenda items. That takes us to unfinished business. Authorize the use of cooperative agreement for Gladstone Park Playground Project. And I invite Management Analyst Smith to report.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. Tonight I will be discussing the grant-funded playground project at Gladstone Park. Next slide. So I wanted to take a moment to highlight some of the previous actions that were taken on this item leading up to where we're at now. So in 2018, the state of California passed the California Drought, Water, Parks, Climate, Coastal Protection, and Outdoor Access for All Act, known as Proposition 68. The per capita program was established to provide funds for local governments to rehabilitate, create, and improve local parks. Cities were encouraged to utilize those funds to rehabilitate existing infrastructure and to address deficiencies in neighborhoods lacking access to the outdoors. Staff came together and expressed interest in utilizing the funds towards rehabilitating and improving the 2 playground sites at Gladstone Park. In December of 2020, a resolution was brought to the City Council so that staff could apply for this funding. Once approved, staff applied to the state in February of 2021. The application was approved and the fully executed grant contracts were sent back to the city in April of 2021. Next slide. So the project will consist of the removal of the current playground on the south side of the park and the installation of a new inclusive playground. The importance of installing an inclusively designed playground is that it aims to create an area that's accessible, engaging, and fun while taking into consideration the potential for differing abilities and limitations of its users. The second aspect of this project will include the removal of the current rubber mulch chips on both playground sites and the installation of a poured-in-place rubber play surface. Through its continued use, the current mulch chips end up spread across the turf, restroom facilities, and walkways, creating a nuisance. The installation of a poured-in-place material would eliminate the need for daily maintenance. Next slide. Here is a rendering of the playground that will be installed on the south side of the park. No expansion of the current play area is needed to fit this new structure. Next slide, please. In accordance with Glendora Municipal Code, the city is exempt from formal bidding procedures in circumstances where it joins into cooperative agreements in which federal or state government or any political subdivision thereof has bid for the items or services. This exemption allows the city to reduce administration costs and work more effectively while adhering to public bidding process provisions set forth in the GMC. In this instance, the city would be utilizing the Colton piggyback bid, as well as the California Multiple Award Schedule, or CMAS, cooperative agreements. CMAS covers the purchase, site work, and installation of the playground equipment, while the Colton piggyback bid covers the rubber poured-in-place surfacing. Next slide. Here are the recommendations that staff are asking the council to consider tonight. Please let me know if you have any questions at this time.
Thank you, Daniela. Appreciate that. I bring it back to the council for discussion. Councilmember Friedendahl.
Thank you, Danielle. I certainly appreciate staff's effort to, one, go after the funding and the grant opportunities, and then be creative enough to reach out for the joint bid opportunities. So, well, it seems like a tremendous amount of money to create nice new playgrounds. We need it, and it's a good opportunity. So, good job, and I support this.
Thank you. Councilmember Alawas.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Danielle, for your report. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of little kids that are going to be anxiously awaiting this new playground, and it should be a nice addition over there. Just one quick question. This was done back in 2017, and there's no pricing escalators attached to this, which is, quite some time ago, 4 years ago.
On the cooperative agreement?
Yes.
I'd have to look back. I do believe there is verbiage in there on price increase, but they're going with the pricing for this current year on that cooperative agreement.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Boyer.
No questions. Great job. I'm looking forward to this addition to our parks. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, great job. And that design looks great. And with that, I will invite a motion.
I so move the item.
I'll second, Gary.
Thank you. That is a motion by Councilmember Alawas, a second by Mayor Pro Tem Boyer. I will take a roll call vote. Councilmember Alawas?
Yes.
Councilmember Thompson is absent. Councilmember Friedendahl?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Boyer?
Yes.
And Mayor Davis?
Yes.
That passes 401. Thank you.
Thank you. That takes us to new business. Item 14, lifting of Brown Act executive orders, Assembly Bill AB 361, in consideration of a resolution re-ratifying the proclamation of a state of emergency by Governor Newsom on March 4th, 2020, and reauthorizing remote teleconference meetings of the legislative bodies of the city of Glendora for a 30-day period beginning October 1, 2021 through October 30th, 2021, pursuant to the Ralph M. Brown Act and AB 361. With that, I invite City Clerk Communications Director Sussman to report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Tonight, I'm here to give an update on the lifting of the Brown Act executive orders as of September 30th and the signing of Assembly Bill 361. Back in March, next slide, please. Back in March 4th of 2020, Governor Newsom declared a state of emergency due to the COVID pandemic. Subsequently, he also included a series of executive orders that waived requirements in the Brown Act that require the physical presence of council members, staff, or public at local agency meetings. These executive orders became collectively known as the Brown Act orders. These orders specifically allowed legislative bodies to hold meetings entirely virtual with no physical presence. The various changes to the Brown Act are outlined in the staff report, and they waive the certain requirements relating to teleconferencing, requiring that agendas be posted at each teleconference area, as well as the accessibility of those teleconference locations to the public. Next slide, please. In the interest of the health and safety of staff and the community, on March 24th, 2020, the City Council ratified and continued an emergency proclamation of an existing local emergency that was issued by the Director of Emergency Services and City Manager. That proclamation or emergency remains in effect today. And we began conducting public meetings virtually with no physical locations for all Brown Act boards. In order to ensure that the public was given access to all the public meetings and the ability to participate, city staff started conducting public meetings on live Spectrum Cable Television 3 and Verizon Channel 31. Also, it was streaming it live to the City of Glendora website under City Meetings, YouTube, and the city's media center. In addition, we added additional ways in which the public could participate. This is all outlined on the agenda cover sheet that outlines the new regulations. And we allowed for in-person comments, virtually, emails, phone calls, mails, etc. Next slide, please. With the sunsetting of the Brown Act orders and the signing of AB 361, cities are allowed to continue to meet remotely during proclaimed state of emergencies under modified Brown Act requirements that are similar but not completely identical to the rules and procedures we are currently using. So the Brown Act orders are set to sunset on September 30th. And AB 361 was signed in by Governor Newsom on September 16. Next slide, please. In order for the city to utilize AB 361, a couple things need to happen. There needs to be a state of emergency has been declared by the state. State or local officials have imposed and or recommend social distancing. And the City Council will have to adopt a resolution allowing for the remote teleconference meeting. This resolution needs to be adopted by a majority vote of the City Council, and it needs to be extended every 30 days via resolution as long as the city wants to continue to conduct those virtual meetings. Next slide, please. There are certain safety measures staff wants to took into consideration and wants to make sure that we keep in mind as we move forward. A couple of points we want to highlight are that all Brown Acts are subject to COVID protocols. AB 361 allows the city to continue to meet remotely during proclaimed emergencies under the modified Brown Act, which we talked about a little bit earlier in this presentation. To date, the city has not implemented any additional restrictions and or infection protocols above or beyond those implemented by the County of Los Angeles. As Adam likes to say, the federal government and the state of California set the ceilings on these infection protocols. The county sets the floor and the city can set the basement. To date, we have not implemented any additional requirements. So we just need to comply with the county requirements as they relate to in-person meetings. Currently, in-person Brown Act meetings the state requires non-vaccinated individuals to wear a face covering while indoors, both visitors and participants. But LA County has actually made it a little bit more restrictive, and they require all participants and visitors to wear face masks or face coverings regardless of the vaccination status. Next slide, please. This chart before you provides a couple of different scenarios on formats for public meetings. It has scenario 1 is pre-COVID format. Scenario 2 is the COVID format we're currently utilizing, which is all virtual. And then scenario 3 and 4 are a couple different options that we would consider hybrid meetings. To assist the city council in this discussion, we have outlined a couple of options to get your thoughts and recommendations on them. A couple of things we need to take into consideration and address are as we transition to a module, if we transition to a module that includes in-person component, we need to worry about compliance with the federal, state, and county recommendations and protocols. Specifically, the 2 big ones right now are vaccination status and social distancing. Wearing masks during meeting can be quite challenging. Wearing masks is detrimental to the quality, quantity, and the volume of speech and can make it difficult for people to understand or to tell who's speaking. In addition, the quality of the recording, we've tested it out and it is greatly deteriorated when people have to wear masks throughout the meeting. And there is also the issue of room capacity that will need to be addressed if we want to start allowing people to start meeting in the council chambers again. Next slide. Oh, so tonight we are here to get council's thoughts on how to continue to or move forward with our conducting of Brown Act meetings. Staff is requesting and recommending that the city council adopt a city council resolution re-ratifying the proclamation of the state of emergency by Governor Newsom on March 4th, 2020, and reauthorizing remote teleconference meetings of the legislative bodies of the city of Glendora for 30-day period beginning October 1st, 2021 through October 30th, 2021, pursuant to the Ralph Brown Act and Assembly Bill 361. I am here to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you.
And Mayor,
Yes, go ahead.
if I could just add really quick, Mayor, as Kathleen mentioned, the adoption of the resolution is only if there's going to be an online model or if we look at a hybrid option pursuant to AB 361. So just wanted to make sure that was for clarification one more time.
Yes, and I'm sorry that it's only a 30-day period because it leaves October 31st just hanging out there. So this makes me kind of sad. But with that in mind, Councilmember Alawas.
Thank you, Mayor. Lots of thoughts going through my head right now. It's a kind of a little pain. Every 30 days we would have to do this if we have, still stay virtually. How long would it take us if we provide funds to the American Recovery Act to refit the council chambers for social distancing? Adam?
So twofold. Under the current rules, social distancing or not would not remove the face mask requirement for indoor meetings. We'd still have to comply with future and current vaccination, either validation or verification mandates as they come down. So social distancing wouldn't allow us to do that removal currently under the health officer order. If we were looking at, as planned in our CIP, which is funded for the remodel of the council chambers, we'd probably be looking about a year project under construction for 3-ish, 4-ish months. But we could validate that with Public Works, but we're probably about a year out from the time we say go.
Okay, well, I'm leaning to stay, as much as I think the public wants us to go back into in-person, I'm leaning towards option 1 on page 1268 and option 2 on page 1291. The same thing, but 2 different pages, 2 different options. That's all the questions I have.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Friedendahl.
Thank you. I agree, as anxious as we are all to go back live and have a presence for the public, I can't support a hybrid version. I just don't see that working. The technology for that would be cumbersome. And at this point, I think that if we did a masked presence, even on Halloween, the muffler that would just create a speech problem would probably not work. I don't know. I would hope that optimistically we might, if we just give it a little more time, we might find that we can lose the masks if we're successful with our improvements and get back to life without them. I would suggest stay where we're at this way, just a little longer, and see if we can come around to the best choice.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem?
I've participated in a couple of hybrid type meetings where masks are necessary for participants, and it just doesn't work. It's really hard to communicate with people. It's really hard to even know who's speaking at certain times. And it's unfortunate that we're being put in this position, but I do not want to be in a position where we are having to force our residents to wear masks to come in and talk to us. It's not appropriate, and we seem to have a good handle on the Zoom meetings, and they're working. So I support continuing with this until the mask mandates go away.
Yes, I too have been at meetings where either everyone is masked or it's been a hybrid. And even with the best sound system, it is still very difficult to hear and understand everything that is spoken. So,
Mayor, I have a question I'd like to ask either Adam or Bill. So let's think on the future. Hypothetically, if the emergency order goes away, does this limit the power of the health department to mandate masks and things of this nature?
The health department can create their own local emergency at the county and have that declared as well. The Brown's executive order allowing the health officers to make these rules themselves without county approval is still in play.
Well, and we know that the county has adopted rules more strict than the state. So.
Right, but this is under the emergency order, so I didn't know if we're going to paint ourselves into a corner in the future. I mean, obviously, we're going to deal with it now, but if the emergency order is lifted, we might find ourselves in the same situation again.
Well, if the emergency order were lifted by the state, and if the county lifted its health orders, then AB 361 would no longer apply, and we would have to go back to in-person meetings, and we would require our residents to meet with us in person. I think one of the more interesting issues that I wish the state legislature would tackle is, even in that day and time when we are back meeting in person in a council chamber with or without social distancing, I think that we will get much more robust public participation by allowing people to either come and speak to the council in person or to do it remotely. Unfortunately, the Brown Act, as currently drafted, even under AB 361, will say we either do it remotely or we do it in person. And I think, I'm not a council member, but I think the two cities that I've worked for have appreciated the fact that they are getting additional public comment on items where people traditionally would not attend a meeting in person, but would be willing to provide public comment over Zoom. So I wish that would become an option regardless of when we get back to meeting in person.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Adam.
Thank you.
So I'll move for option 1 on page 1268.
And that includes the resolution, Councilman?
Yes.
Is option 1 what the resolution is?
It's basically status quo, what we're doing now.
Well, yeah, you could just state that then. That would be helpful.
Well, we have an option here, so.
Yes.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Thank you. That is a motion by Councilmember Alawas, a second by Mayor Pro Tem Boyer. to adopt City Council Resolution CC 2021-48 entitled "A Resolution Ratifying the Proclamation of a State of Emergency by Governor Newsom on March 4th, 2020, and reauthorizing remote teleconference meetings of the legislative bodies of the City of Glendora for the 30-day period beginning October 1, 2021 through October 30th, 2021 pursuant to the Ralph M. Brown Act and AB 361. I'm going to take a roll call vote. Councilmember Alawas.
Yes.
Councilmember Thompson is absent. Councilmember Friedendahl.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Boyer
Yes.
and Mayor Davis. Do we have Mayor Davis?
Yes.
There we go. Thank you. That passes 401. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Mayor, I just wanted to say really quick, a special appreciation to the city attorney and Kathleen in true state of California fashion. They made all these expiration dates, the new laws go into effect one right after the other, and gave a lot of cities very little time to put all this together. So special thanks to both of them for wading through all of this.
Thank you. And thank you, Kathleen and Bill, for your hard work on that. That takes us to item 15, calling for nominations for San Gabriel Water Quality Authority to represent cities with prescriptive water pumping rights. City Manager Raymond.
Good evening, everyone. I'll make this quickly. I'll make this quick. In 1993, the legislature passed SB 1679 to help or to create the San Gabriel Basin Water Quality Authority, which its goals is to develop, finance, and implement groundwater projects. It's a 7-member board. There are 3 overlapping municipal water agencies that are a part of it. There are 2 sets of city appointments, those with prescriptive rights, such as the city of Glendora, and those without. Additionally, there are 2 other water resellers that sit on the board. As we do so often, the city received the request from the authority to determine if we would like to nominate anyone to serve under the prescriptive right cities. Those cities are Alhambra, Azusa, El Monte, the City of Industry, Monterey Park, South Pasadena, Arcadia, Covina, of course, Glendora, Irwindale, Monrovia, and Whittier. Currently, Jorge Marquez from the City of Covina is the appointee for the cities with prescriptive rights. This evening, there's a potential resolution attached for consideration. The options before the City Council are as follows. We can pick a council member to be representative. We can pick a non-council member or a council member from another agency to be a representative, or we can pick no one to be a representative. All representatives must be proposed via resolution to the authority no later than October 15th. There is one more council meeting between now and October 15th. On October 29th, cities will receive the list of all candidates for that 1 seat on the board. And again, that seats with cities with prescriptive rights or pumping rights. The election will be held on 12/15 at 12 p.m. at the office. So again, just in brief summary, the City Council can recommend one of its own members to sit on the board. It can recommend another council member from another agency previously listed to sit on the board, or it can take no action this evening. I guess the 4th action would be to continue the item to the next meeting as well. And with that, I will take any questions that council may have.
Councilmember Alawas.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. We also have the City of Azusa that's put their name in the hat as well. And so, as you mentioned as well, the mayor from Covina. So unless Gary wants to put his hat in the ring, I'd suggest we take no action.
Okay, thank you. With that, then I will go to Mayor Pro Tem.
Taker, Gary?
Have no interest for another appointment at this time. So there are people out there that are passionate about this and want to do it. So I agree with you, Michael.
Okay.
Councilmember Friedendahl.
Yeah, I agree. No action here. No dog in the race.
And I would concur.
Yeah.
So do you need a formal motion stating no action or just take no action?
We will take no action this evening, Mayor. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, sir. All right, that takes us to member closing statements. Any of the council? Mr. Alawas, any closing statements?
No, I'm good. Thank you, Mayor.
Mr. Friedendahl?
No, thank you.
Mr. Boyer?
Just one quick question, Adam. Have there been any more meetings or communications with the district attorney's office as far as some of the things that we've been working on?
We've had some follow-up. The police department has met with the DA's office to try to arrange some dates for review of our cases, that the 9 or 10 cases that could be refiled, and then to follow up on some of the other requests that we talked about. We should be scheduling a follow-up meeting in the next 4 to 6 weeks, and we'll definitely make sure if there is a update in any filing of those 9 or 10 cases that we'll follow up.
And I should have prompted you for this before the meeting, but just to ask, have there been any other cases that we believe should have been filed that have not been?
I don't have the exact numbers between when we submitted the initial cases. There are several others. However, one of the things we're meeting with the DA's office on is repeat offenders. So those numbers that we talked about previously, those 80, 90 cases, could be revisited, and we're currently gathering all the information on how many of those are repeat offenders to see if they will prosecute additional cases. So I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, and we'd be happy to bring those for our next meeting with that update. And
Yeah,
I see Captain Williams is on the call, so he'll take note of that request.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
And Mr. Raymond, any further comments or reports?
Yeah, June is still on the call this evening. Just one more time, appreciate all of her service, staying on the call till the very end, even though her retirement's just around the corner. So we thank her again for her service, putting in 110% till the very end. And as the council stated, staff too is ready to get back into meeting with the public. Some of the rules and regulations we have to deal with are onerous in Los Angeles County, as the council indicated. It's just a little more complicated. We too look forward to it. It's a much, believe it or not, simpler process for staff. And as Bill mentioned, we're trying to find ways to ensure the public is engaged. We've had a lot of feedback and people that have logged in to watch this way. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Winder, anything further?
One last comment. I'm not a department head, but I've appreciated my opportunity to work with June. She performed a very vital function near and dear to me, and that is she made sure my monthly invoices got paid. and she went to battle for me with ICRMA. So thank you, June. Appreciate it. Enjoy your retirement. Although I have a brother-in-law who retired, and 6 months later he said, retirement is not all that it's kicked up to be. So I don't know. That's it. Thanks, Mayor.
Mm-hmm. Any other department heads? Any comments?
Mayor, I'd just like to announce that we are still waiting on the final information regarding to the census data. We have not received that yet. We will be scheduling a town hall meeting once we receive that data to provide assistance to anybody wanting to create a map as we go through this redistricting process. I'm hoping to get some information next week on this and to actually receive the final numbers. If we do, we will make that available on the city's website so that it is both accessible to the public and to the council members.
Hey, Kathleen, can you talk about passports really quick and the delays at the federal level?
So we have received an update from the state on our passports. Currently, it is taking us, let's see, I think it was 16 weeks for a expedited and 18 weeks for regular. So there.
He's on the call for that too.
Yeah.
That's a passport going in.
So if anybody is interested in passports, we recommend you come in as soon as possible and give yourself plenty of leeway time. The state is still playing catch up. They said they're about 6 months out and have not recuperated since they had closed down because of COVID. The city takes in the passports and processes them and mails them off. So we have no control over how long and how much time it takes them to turn those back around.
Thank you. Any other department director with any comments or reports? Okay, well, seeing none, then we will stand adjourned at 9:32 p.m. Thank you, everyone.
Good night, everyone.